The storm had raged through the night, leaving the little town of Willow Creek buried beneath a blanket of snow so deep it swallowed every sound. The streets were deserted, fences half covered, and the air so cold it felt like glass against the skin. But that morning when the sky began to clear and the first weak rays of sunlight stretched across the field, Evelyn Parker, a 76-year-old widow, stepped outside her small farmhouse at the edge of town with her old wool shawl wrapped tightly around her shoulders. The wind came first, not the gentle kind that stirs curtains or makes leaves dance, but the kind that screams. The kind that tells you winter has arrived not as a season, but as a reckoning. It tore across the open plains of Montana with a voice like grinding metal, stripping the last brown leaves from the cottonwoods and rattling the shutters of every house in Willow Creek until the whole town seemed to shiver. Evelyn stood at her kitchen window, a mug of chamomile tea cooling in her weathered hands, watching the sky turn the color of old pewter. She was 76 years old, though her body reminded her of it less gently with each passing winter. Her fingers knobbed with arthritis ached when she gripped the mug. Her back curved from decades of farm work, and grief protested when she stood too long. But her eyes, pale blue and still sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses, saw what others missed. The barometer on the wall was dropping, fast. She had lived in this house for 52 years. She had buried her husband Henry in the cemetery just beyond the hill. She had raised her son Marcus within these walls, watched him grow tall and restless and full of dreams that didn't fit inside the borders of a small Montana town. And she had survived the kind of losses that break most people into pieces too small to put back together. But Evelyn Parker had never broken. She bent, she wept, she raged at God in the dark hours before dawn, but she did not break. The storm hit at dusk. The temperature plummeted 20 degrees in an hour. Snow came down in thick, wet curtains that turned the world into a blur of white and gray. The power lines swayed and snapped under the weight of ice. One by one, the lights in town went dark. Evelyn lit candles. She stoked the fire in the wood stove until the small kitchen glowed with warmth. She pulled her late husband's wool shawl, the one that still smelled faintly of his tobacco, and Old Spice tight around her shoulders. And she prayed. Not the formal prayers from the hymnals at St. Michael's Episcopal, but the raw, desperate kind. The kind you speak when you know something terrible is coming, and all you can do is ask for mercy. "Watch over the lost ones tonight, Lord," she whispered into the firelight. "The ones caught out there in the cold. Bring them home safe." She didn't know then that she was praying for two men on a motorcycle skidding off Route 89, their bike spinning out on black ice and slamming into a snowbank 300 yards from her fence line. She didn't know that one of them, a man named Cole Matthews, would later tell her that in the moment before impact, he thought he saw a light in a window and felt for the first time in 5 years something like hope. The storm raged all night. Evelyn dozed in the rocking chair by the fire, waking every hour to add another log, to listen to the wind howl like something alive and furious. She thought about Marcus. She always thought about Marcus during storms. He had died on a night like this 15 years ago. His truck rolled over on an icy road while he tried to help a stranger whose motorcycle had crashed. The stranger had disappeared before the ambulance arrived. Marcus had died alone in the snow, 26 years old, his whole life still ahead of him. Some griefs you carry forever. They become part of your bones, your blood, the rhythm of your breath. Evelyn carried Marcus in every winter storm, in every act of kindness. She forced herself to continue when the world felt too cruel to bear. When dawn broke, the world outside was unrecognizable. Snow had swallowed the fences, the gate, the gravel road. The barn roof sagged under the weight. The trees bent low, their branches encased in ice that glittered in the weak morning sun like 1,000 broken promises. Evelyn put on Henry's old work boots, 3 sizes too big, and stuffed with newspaper to fit her narrow feet. She wrapped a scarf around her face and pushed open the back door. The cold hit her like a physical blow, stealing the breath from her lungs. She made her way toward the back fence where the stray dogs and cats she fed usually waited. Her feet sank deep into the snow with every step. Her heart hammered in her chest. 76-year-old hearts are not built for this kind of exertion, but Evelyn had stopped listening to what her body told her it couldn't do a long time ago. That's when she saw them. Two dark shapes slumped against the fence line, half buried in snow. At first, she thought they were dead animals, deer maybe caught in the storm, but as she got closer, her old eyes adjusting to the glare of sun on snow, she saw the leather, the boots, the tattoos on hands frozen blue. Men. Her breath caught. She stumbled forward, her legs suddenly unsteady. One of them had his face turned toward the sky, his lips the color of old bruises. The other was curled on his side, one arm outstretched as if reaching for something he'd never grasp. Evelyn dropped to her knees in the snow, the cold soaking through her wool dress and Henry's old pants underneath. She pulled off her glove and pressed her bare fingers to the first man's throat, searching for a pulse. For a long, terrible moment, she felt nothing, then faint as a whisper, a flutter, a heartbeat. Oh, thank God, she breathed. Thank God, thank God. She shook his shoulder gently at first, then harder. Wake up. Please wake up. His eyelids fluttered. Beneath them, his eyes rolled back unfocused. His lips moved, but no sound came out. The other man, the one curled on his side, groaned. It was a low animal sound of pain. Evelyn looked down at them, and something in her chest cracked open. These were not boys. They were men probably in their 40s with crow's feet at the corners of their eyes and scars that spoke of hard lives. Their jackets stiff with ice bore patches she recognized from news reports and whispered warnings in town. Hell's Angels. The words were embroidered in red and white across their backs above a winged death's head. Most people in Willow Creek would have walked away, would have called the sheriff and let someone else deal with it. These were dangerous men, criminals, outlaws. But Evelyn saw something else. She saw two human beings on the edge of death. She saw someone's sons, maybe someone's fathers. And she saw Marcus, 26 years old, and bleeding out in the snow while a stranger drove away. Not today, she said out loud, her voice stronger than her body. Not in my yard, not on my watch. She tried to pull the first man to his feet. He was massive, easily twice her weight, his body dead weight in her arms. She got him halfway up before her knees buckled, and they both went down Evelyn's hips, slamming into the frozen ground hard enough to make her cry out. But she got up. She always got up. This time she hooked her arms under his and dragged him, inch by inch, foot by foot, her heart screaming in her chest, her lungs burning, her vision going gray at the edges. She dragged him across 50 yards of snow to her back door, up the 3 porch steps, and inside. She left him by the fire and went back for the second man. This one was lighter, but still far too heavy for her. She made it 15 feet before she had to stop gasping, her whole body shaking. The man's eyes opened, brown eyes bloodshot and confused. Where he managed, his voice was like gravel. Where am I? You're safe, Evelyn panted. You're going to be okay. But you have to help me. Can you stand? He tried, his legs folded under him like a newborn colt's. Evelyn caught him staggered, kept them both upright through sheer stubborn will. Together, leaning on each other, they made it inside. Evelyn got them both near the fire. She stripped off their frozen jackets with hands that wouldn't stop shaking, revealing more patches, more tattoos, more evidence of lives lived on the margins. The first man, still unconscious, had a tattoo of a woman and a small boy on his forearm. The names underneath were Sarah and Danny, followed by dates. Birth dates, and Evelyn realized with a sharp pain in her chest, death dates. The same date for both. The second man had scars, lots of them. A puckered bullet wound on his shoulder. Long, thin scars on his back that looked like shrapnel. And when she pulled off his boots, she saw a prosthetic foot where his left foot should have been. Veteran, she thought. This one's a veteran. She wrapped them in every blanket she owned. She heated water on the wood stove and made them drink tiny sips, at first holding their heads up like infants. The first man, the one with the tattoo, started to shiver violently. His teeth chattered so hard she was afraid he'd bite through his tongue. That's good, she told him, even though he couldn't hear her. Shivering is good. It means your body's still fighting. The second man, the veteran, was more alert now. He watched her with wary, confused eyes as she moved around the kitchen, heating soup, finding more blankets, checking his pulse every few minutes. "Why are you helping us?" he finally asked. His voice was raw, thick with something that might have been tears or just exhaustion. Evelyn paused, a bowl of chicken soup in her hands. She looked at him, really looked at him, at the scars and the fear and the shame in his eyes. Because a long time ago, she said quietly, "My son died trying to help a man on a motorcycle. The man left before anyone could thank him, before anyone could save my boy. I've spent 15 years wondering what kind of person does that. What kind of person takes help and gives nothing back?" She set the soup down in front of him. "I decided I never want to be that person. Now drink this before it gets cold." He stared at her for a long moment. Then he picked up the spoon with shaking hands and drank. By noon, Dr. Frank Whitmore had arrived. Evelyn had called him from her landline, the only phone in town that still worked with the power out. Frank was 65, a widower himself, and had been the town's only doctor for 40 years. He was also a man who made his feelings about bikers very clear at every town hall meeting. He came anyway, because Evelyn Parker asked him to, and in Willow Creek, when Evelyn Parker asked for help, you didn't say no. He examined both men in silence, his face carved from stone. The first man, who Evelyn would later learn was named Cole Matthews, had severe hypothermia and frostbite on 3 fingers. The second, Ray Donovan, had hypothermia as well, plus a nasty gash on his head from the crash that probably should have been stitched up hours ago. "They should be in a hospital," Frank said flatly. "The roads are closed," Evelyn replied. "You know that." "They should be in a hospital," he repeated. But he opened his bag and started treating them anyway. When he was done, he pulled Evelyn aside into the small living room. Through the doorway, they could see Cole and Ray by the fire, wrapped in blankets, steam rising from mugs of hot tea. "Do you know who these men are?" Frank asked quietly. "They're men who would have died without help," Evelyn said. "They're Hell's Angels, Evelyn. Criminals. You can't just, what saved their lives?" She met his eyes steadily. "Would you have left them to die, Frank?" He looked away. "That's not the point. That's exactly the point." Her voice was soft but immovable. "When did we become the kind of people who decide who deserves to live based on the patches they wear?" Frank's jaw tightened. For a moment, Evelyn thought he might argue, but then his shoulders sagged. He looked old suddenly, tired. "My brother wore a patch like that," he said quietly. "Different club. He overdosed 20 years ago in a motel room in Billings. No one found him for 3 days." Evelyn's expression softened. "I'm sorry, Frank. I didn't know." "Nobody did." He picked up his bag. "I've spent 20 years hating men like them because I couldn't save my brother from becoming one. Maybe that was wrong of me." He paused at the door. "Keep them warm. Make sure they drink plenty of fluids. I'll check on them tomorrow if the road's clear." "Thank you, Frank." He nodded once and walked out into the snow. Over the next 3 days, Willow Creek dug itself out. Snowplows rumbled through the streets. Power was restored 1 block at a time, and rumors spread faster than the plows could clear the roads. Evelyn Parker had taken in 2 Hell's Angels, 2 criminals, 2 dangerous men. Sheriff Tom Brennan showed up on the 4th day, his patrol SUV's lights flashing unnecessarily in the bright afternoon sun. He was 50 years old with a gut that hung over his belt and a face that had forgotten how to smile sometime around his second divorce. Evelyn met him at the door. "Mrs. Parker," he said, his voice professionally neutral, "I need to speak with your guests." "They're not guests, Tom. They're people I helped. They're members of a criminal organization." He pushed past her into the house. Cole and Ray were at the kitchen table eating the chicken and dumplings Evelyn had made. They looked up as the sheriff entered, their expressions going carefully blank. "Gentlemen," Brennan said, "I need to see some ID." Cole reached slowly into his pocket and pulled out a wallet. Ray did the same. Brennan examined their licenses, his frown deepening. "Cole Matthews, Ray Donovan." He looked up. "You boys are a long way from home. We were passing through, Cole said. His voice was deep rough around the edges. Storm caught us. Mm-hmm. And you just happened to crash right outside Mrs. Parker's property. We just happened to almost die, Ray said quietly, and she saved our lives. Brennan's gaze flicked between them. There's an outstanding warrant for Cole Matthews in Nevada. Assault and battery. You want to tell me about that? Cole's jaw tightened. I served my time for that. The warrant's old. Check again. Brennan pulled out his radio and called it in. 5 minutes of tense silence followed. Finally, the dispatcher's voice crackled back. Sheriff, that warrant was cleared 6 months ago. He's clean. Brennan looked disappointed. He turned to Evelyn. Mrs. Parker, these men need to leave. Today. The roads are still bad, Evelyn said calmly. The main roads are clear. Their motorcycle is buried in a snowbank. They have no transportation. That's not your problem. It became my problem when I chose to save their lives. Evelyn folded her arms. They'll leave when they're ready and when they have a way to leave. Until then, they're staying here. Brennan's face reddened. Evelyn, don't make this difficult. People are scared. They don't want dangerous men in their town. Then people should ask themselves why they're so scared of two men who've done nothing but fix my fence and chop my firewood. Her voice was steel wrapped in kindness. Now, if you're not arresting anyone, Tom, I have supper to make. Brennan stared at her for a long moment. Then he shook his head and walked out, slamming the door behind him. Cole and Ray sat in silence. You didn't have to do that, Cole said finally. Evelyn turned to them, her eyes suddenly fierce. Yes, I did. Because if I didn't, I'd be just like everyone else in this town who forgot that mercy doesn't come with conditions. That night, after Cole and Ray had gone to sleep in Marcus's old room, Evelyn sat alone in the kitchen. She pulled out an old shoebox from the top shelf of the pantry. Inside were pictures of Marcus. Marcus as a baby, Marcus on his first day of school, Marcus at his high school graduation, tall and grinning, his whole future spread out before him like an open road. And at the bottom, a newspaper clipping. Local man dies helping stranded motorist. The article was brief, clinical. It didn't mention that Marcus had a mother who would never stop missing him. It didn't mention that the motorist he died trying to help had vanished without a trace. Evelyn pressed the clipping to her chest and cried. Not for the first time, not for the last. But when she was done, she put the clipping back, closed the box, and went to bed. Because grief was something you carried, but it didn't have to be something that stopped you from carrying others. The next morning, Evelyn woke to the sound of hammering. She pulled on her robe and went outside to find Cole and Ray on her front porch. Cole was replacing the rotted boards she'd been meaning to fix for 2 years. Ray was repainting the railing. What are you doing? She asked. Cole looked up. His face was still bruised from the crash, his fingers bandaged from frostbite, but his eyes were clear. Paying you back. You don't owe me anything. Yeah, Ray said softly, dipping his brush into white paint. We do. Evelyn stood there for a moment watching them work. The sun was bright on the fresh snow. The air was cold but clean. And for the first time in a very long time, her house didn't feel so empty. Word spread quickly. By lunchtime, half the town knew that the bikers were doing work on Evelyn Parker's property. Opinions were divided. Some people thought it was sweet. Others thought Evelyn had lost her mind. At the general store, Claire Peterson, a 70-year-old widow who had lost her daughter to a drunk driver 12 years ago, defended Evelyn loudly to anyone who would listen. That woman has more Christian charity in her little finger than most of us have in our whole bodies. If she thinks those men deserve a second chance, then maybe they do. Jake Morrison, Claire's grandson, disagreed. He was 28, angry, and had spent the last 12 years blaming bikers for his mother's death, even though the driver had been a banker in a sedan, not a biker at all. Rage doesn't always care about facts. She's putting the whole town at risk, he said loudly in the hardware store. Those men are dangerous. Have they done anything dangerous? Asked Tom Green, the owner. They're Hell's Angels. That's enough. But others were less certain. Dr. Whitmore, after his third visit to check on Cole and Ray, admitted to his nurse that he had never seen two patients more polite or grateful. "They're not what I expected," he said quietly. What he didn't say, what he couldn't say, was that watching Ray carefully measure out his medication and thank him with genuine warmth had made him think of his brother for the first time in years without the sharp edge of anger. Just sadness. Just loss. On the seventh day, Cole and Ray were strong enough to retrieve their motorcycle from the snowbank. They walked out there with Evelyn, the three of them trudging through the melting snow. The bike was a mess. The front wheel bent, the gas tank dented, but it was salvageable. As they worked to dig it out, Evelyn noticed Cole staring at something in his hand. She moved closer and saw it was a photograph, water damaged but still recognizable. A woman with dark hair and a bright smile. A little boy, maybe 5 years old, missing his front teeth. "Your family?" Evelyn asked gently. Cole nodded. His throat worked. "Sarah and Danny, my wife and son, they died 5 years ago. House fire." Evelyn's hand went to her chest. "Oh, Cole, I'm so sorry." It wasn't an accident. His voice was flat dead. It was set by a man I testified against when I was still trying to do the right thing, trying to get out of the life. He wanted to send a message. Evelyn felt her blood run cold. "Did they catch him?" Cole's smile was bitter. "No, but I found him." The weight of those words hung in the air between them. "I spent 2 years in prison for what I did to him," Cole continued. "It was worth it. Every day was worth it. But when I got out, I had nothing left. No family, no home, no reason to try anymore. So I went back to the club, because at least their people expected me to be a monster." Ray, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "We all got our demons, Cole. You know mine." Evelyn looked at Ray. He met her eyes and she saw the weight of too many wars, too many bodies, too many nights waking up screaming. "Afghanistan," he said simply. 3 tours. I came back with 1 foot, half a soul, and more nightmares than memories. My wife couldn't take it. My kids don't talk to me. The VA couldn't help me. But the club did. Not in a good way, not in a healthy way, but they were there when no one else was. Evelyn reached out and took both their hands. Her small, weathered hands wrapped around their scarred, calloused ones. "You are not monsters," she said firmly. "You're men who've been hurt and who hurt others in return. That's human. That's what humans do when they're in pain. But you can also be men who choose differently. You can be men who fix fences and paint railings and chop firewood for a stubborn old woman who can't mind her own business." Cole's laugh was wet, choked. Ray's eyes were red. "Why?" Ray asked again. "Why do you care?" Evelyn looked at them both. "Because my son died trying to save someone like you, and I can't save him. But maybe I can save you. Maybe that's how I keep him alive." They stood there in the snow, 3 broken people holding on to each other. And for a moment, the world felt a little less cold. That night, someone painted the word traitor across Evelyn's front door in red spray paint. She found it the next morning when she went out to get the paper. The word was huge, dripping angry. She stared at it for a long moment, her hand pressed to her mouth. Cole and Ray came out behind her. They saw the word and their faces went hard. "We'll leave," Cole said immediately. "We're bringing trouble to you." "No," Evelyn's voice was sharp. "You're not bringing anything. Someone else brought this. Someone who's afraid, and I won't let fear win." She marched back inside, came out with a bucket of soapy water and a scrub brush, and started cleaning the door herself. Cole and Ray exchanged a look. Then they took the brush from her hands. "Let us," Ray said. They scrubbed the door clean while Evelyn stood, watch her arms crossed, her jaw set. When Sheriff Brennan drove by and saw what was happening, he slowed down but didn't stop. He just shook his head and kept driving. That Sunday, Evelyn did something no one expected. She brought Cole and Ray to church. St. Michael's Episcopal was a small stone building at the center of town built in 1903 by settlers who believed God could be found even in the harshest places. Evelyn had attended every Sunday for 50 years. She knew every pew, every hymn, every crack in the stained glass window behind the altar. When she walked in with Cole and Ray on either side of her, the congregation went silent. Pastor Robert Graham, 68 years old and wise enough to know when to speak and when to stay quiet, met them at the door. "Evelyn," he said warmly, "gentlemen, welcome." Evelyn led them to her usual pew, third row from the front. People stared. Some looked angry. Some looked afraid. Claire Peterson smiled and nodded. Dr. Whitmore, sitting in the back, looked down at his hands. Pastor Graham climbed into the pulpit and looked out at his congregation. He didn't acknowledge the tension. He simply opened his Bible and began to read. "For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in." His voice was calm, steady. "I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." He looked up. His eyes swept the room. "The righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you?" He paused. The silence was absolute. The king will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." Pastor Graham closed the Bible. "Some of you are angry that Evelyn brought guests into God's house today. You think they don't belong here. You think their past disqualifies them from God's grace." His voice grew stronger. "But let me ask you this. Which of us has no past? Which of us has never done something we're ashamed of? Which of us has never needed mercy we didn't deserve?" He looked directly at Cole and Ray. "You are welcome here. You are welcome at the table, because this is not our house. This is God's house, and God turns no one away." After the service, the congregation filed out in silence. Some people shook Evelyn's hand. Some avoided her eyes, but no one said a word against her. And in the parking lot, Claire Peterson invited Evelyn, Cole, and Ray to Sunday dinner. It was a small thing, an old woman inviting 3 people to a pot roast. But in Willow Creek, small things mattered. Over dinner at Claire's modest home, the truth came out. Claire told them about her daughter, about the car accident, about the drunk driver who killed her. She told them about the years of rage, the years of wanting someone to blame. "I blamed bikers for a long time," she admitted, looking at Cole and Ray. "Even though it wasn't a biker who killed my daughter. I blamed you because it was easier than forgiving the man who did. Easier than forgiving myself for letting her drive that night." She wiped her eyes. "But hate is exhausting, and it doesn't bring her back. Nothing brings her back. So I had to choose. Hold on to the hate or let it go. I chose to let it go." Cole's voice was rough when he spoke. "I haven't let go yet. I don't know if I can." "Then let me carry some of it for you," Claire said simply. "That's what we do here. We carry each other." Ray, who had been quiet all evening, finally spoke. "I had a friend, Frank Carver. We served together in Afghanistan. He lives here, in this town." Claire's eyes widened. Frank Carver, the man who lives in the trailer park." Ray nodded. "I haven't seen him since we got back. I heard he was struggling, heard he couldn't hold a job, couldn't sleep, couldn't function. I was too ashamed of my own problems to reach out. Too scared he'd see what a mess I'd become." "He needs you," Claire said firmly, "and you need him. Tomorrow we'll go see him together." That night, lying in Marcus's old bed, Cole and Ray talked in the dark. "I never thought I'd end up here," Cole said, "in a place like this, with people like them." "Me neither," Ray admitted. "But maybe that's the point. Maybe we needed to end up somewhere we never expected." "You think we can really change, really become something different?" Ray was quiet for a long time. "I don't know, but I think Evelyn believes we can, and maybe that's enough to start." The next day, true to her word, Claire took Ray to see Frank Carver. The trailer park was on the edge of town, a collection of aluminum homes that had seen better decades. Frank's trailer was the last one, with a torn American flag hanging from the porch and a garden that had long since gone to weeds. Claire knocked. No answer. Ray stepped forward. Frank, it's Ray Donovan. Open up, man. A long silence. Then the door cracked open. A man peered out gaunt and hollow-eyed, his beard unkempt, his hands shaking. Ray. His voice was disbelief and hope and fear all mixed together. That really you? Yeah, brother, it's me. Frank started to cry. Not quiet tears, deep wrenching sobs. Ray pulled him into a hug and held him while he shook. I thought I was alone, Frank kept saying. I thought I was the only one. You're not alone, Ray said firmly. You're not alone anymore. Inside the trailer, the three of them talked for hours. Frank told them about the nightmares, about the days he couldn't get out of bed, about the times he'd put a gun to his head and only stopped because he was too tired to pull the trigger. Ray told him about the club, about the drinking, about the fights, about the long roads that led nowhere. And he told him about Evelyn, about the woman who saw past the patches and the scars and the anger and just saw two men who needed help. She sounds like a miracle, Frank said quietly. She is, Ray agreed, and she's not done yet. Neither are we. Back at Evelyn's house, Cole was learning to bake bread. Evelyn stood beside him at the counter, her small hands guiding his large ones, showing him how to knead the dough, how to feel when it was ready. Sarah used to do this, he said quietly. She'd make bread every Sunday. Danny would sit on the counter and eat the raw dough when she wasn't looking. Tell me about them, Evelyn said. And so he did. He told her about Sarah's laugh, about Danny's obsession with dinosaurs, about the life they'd built together in a small house in Nevada, about the dreams they had, the future they'd planned. They're still with you, Evelyn said when he finished. In here, she pressed her hand to his chest. That doesn't go away. That never goes away. You just learn to carry it differently. Cole's eyes were wet. I don't know how. Then I'll teach you. She smiled. The same way I'm teaching you to make bread, one step at a time. That evening, as the sun set over the snow-covered fields, turning the world gold and orange and pink, Evelyn stood on her porch and watched Cole and Ray chop firewood together. They moved in sync, two men who'd found an unexpected rhythm. She thought about Marcus, about the stranger he'd died trying to save, about the anger she'd carried for so long, wondering why that stranger never came back. And she realized, standing there in the fading light, that maybe the stranger had come back. Maybe not as the same person, maybe not in the way she'd expected, but maybe Cole and Ray were the universe's way of balancing the scales, of giving her a chance to save someone the way Marcus had tried to save someone. She didn't know yet about the men coming for them, didn't know about the violence and the fear and the impossible choices that lay ahead. All she knew was that for the first time in 15 years, her house felt like a home again. And that was enough. For now, that was enough. The change in Willow Creek was slow, like snow melting in spring. Not a sudden thaw, but a gradual softening. People still crossed the street when they saw Cole and Ray walking to the hardware store, but fewer of them did. The whispers still followed them into the diner, but they were quieter, less hostile. And when Evelyn walked through town with them on either side of her, more people nodded than turned away. Dr. Whitmore was the first to truly crack. He showed up at Evelyn's house on a Tuesday morning with a bottle of whiskey and a story he'd never told anyone in Willow Creek. His brother's name had been David. He'd been a Hell's Angel too, back in the 80s. A smart kid who made bad choices and worse friends. He died at 32 in a motel room with a needle in his arm and no one to call for help. I blame the club, Frank admitted, sitting at Evelyn's kitchen table while Cole and Ray listened. I blamed every man who wore that patch. Told myself they'd corrupted him, led him astray, killed him. But the truth is David made his own choices, and I wasn't there for him when he needed me most. I was too busy being ashamed of him to save him. He looked at Ray. When you showed me that prosthetic and told me about Afghanistan, I saw my brother. Not as he was, but as he could have been. If someone had given him a chance, if someone had seen past the jacket to the man underneath. Ray's voice was thick. I'm sorry about your brother, Doc. I'm sorry I judged you before I knew you. Frank poured them each a shot of whiskey. To second chances. They drank in silence. That same week, Cole started working part-time at Tom Green's hardware store. Tom had lost an employee to the winter flu and was short-handed. He'd watched Cole repair Evelyn's porch, seen the precision of his work, and made an offer. "I can't pay much," Tom had said gruffly, "and I can't promise people won't give you grief. But if you want it, the job's yours." Cole had stared at him. "Why?" Tom shrugged. "Because Evelyn Parker speaks highly of you. And if a woman who's earned every ounce of respect in this town thinks you're worth a damn, then maybe you are." So Cole worked. He restocked shelves, helped customers find what they needed, and kept his head down. Some people refused to be helped by him. Others were grudgingly polite. And a few, like old Mrs. Henderson, who was 93 and didn't care what anyone thought, treated him like any other human being. "You're the one staying with Evelyn, aren't you?" she'd asked, her milky eyes sharp. "Yes, ma'am. Good. She's been alone too long. Everyone needs someone to take care of." She patted his hand with her papery one. "You take care of her, you hear me? She's one of the good ones." Cole had knotted his throat too tight to speak. Ray, meanwhile, found his way back to Frank Carver. The two veterans started meeting every morning at Claire Peterson's kitchen table. Claire, who had taken Ray under her wing the way Evelyn had taken Cole, provided coffee and a safe space. They talked about the war, about the things they'd seen and done, about the friends who didn't come home, about the guilt of surviving when better men didn't. "I dream about Jenkins," Frank said one morning. He was 19, kid from Iowa, got hit by an IED 2 weeks before his deployment ended. I can still hear him screaming. Ray's hands shook around his coffee mug. "I dream about the village, the one we were supposed to protect. When we came back, it was gone, everyone dead, women, children, old people. We were 3 miles away, and we didn't know until it was too late." Claire listened without judgment, without platitudes. She just listened. And sometimes that was all they needed. But healing isn't linear. It's jagged, full of backslides and breakthroughs. One night, Ray woke screaming. Cole found him on the floor of Marcus's room, shaking his prosthetic foot clutched in his hands like a weapon. "They're here," Ray gasped. "The Taliban. They're here, Ray." Cole knelt beside him, keeping his voice calm. "You're in Montana. You're safe. There's no Taliban here. I saw them. I saw. You saw a nightmare, that's all. Just a nightmare." Evelyn appeared in the doorway in her nightgown, her white hair loose around her shoulders. She didn't speak. She just sat down on the floor with them, took Ray's hand, and started humming. An old hymn, softly under her breath. Slowly, Ray's breathing steadied. His grip loosened. He looked at Evelyn, this tiny old woman sitting on the floor at 3 in the morning, and something in him broke. "I don't deserve this," he whispered. "I don't deserve your kindness." "Kindness isn't about deserving," Evelyn said gently. "It's about choosing. And I choose you. Every day, I choose you." Ray wept. Cole looked away, his own eyes burning, and Evelyn kept humming. The first real trouble came on a Thursday. A man walked into the hardware store where Cole was working. He was in his 40s, heavily tattooed, wearing a leather jacket with different patches. Not Hell's Angels. Something else. Iron Skulls, the back of his jacket read. He walked straight up to Cole, who was stocking paint cans. "You're Cole Matthews." Cole straightened slowly. Every instinct screamed danger. "I am. I'm Vincent Sullivan, but people call me Reaper." The man's eyes were cold. "We need to talk." Tom Green appeared from the back, his hand near the phone. "Everything okay here?" Fine, Cole said. His voice was steady, but his heart was racing. "We'll talk outside." They went out into the parking lot. The January sun was weak, the air sharp with cold. "What do you want, Vincent?" Vincent lit a cigarette. 15 years ago, a kid died on Route 89 trying to help a biker. "You know anything about that?" Cole's blood went cold. "What?" "Marcus Parker, 26 years old. Died in the snow while the guy he was trying to help drove off and left him there." Vincent took a long drag. "I'm that guy, Cole. I'm the one who left him to die." The world tilted. Cole grabbed the truck beside him to stay upright. You son of a... I know, Vincent's voice was flat. I know what I am. I've lived with it every day for 15 years. I was high, I was scared, I was young and stupid. I heard the sirens and I ran. By the time I sobered up and realized what I'd done, the kid was dead and I was gone. Cole's fists were clenched so tight his knuckles were white. Evelyn is that kid's mother, I know. That's why I'm here. You came here to what confess make yourself feel better. Vincent met his eyes. I came here to warn you and to face what I did. Warn me about what iron skulls. They know you're here. They know about the thing with Derek Morrison. And they're coming. Cole felt the ground drop out from under him. Derek Morrison, the name he'd spent 5 years trying to forget. The man who'd burned down his house with his wife and son inside. The man Cole had found in a bar in Nevada and beaten so badly, the doctors said he'd never walk right again. Derek's brother. How many, Cole asked. 20, maybe 30. They'll be here in 3 days. Vincent dropped his cigarette and crushed it under his boot. I'm here with my chapter. 10 guys. It's not enough, but it's what I can do. Why would you help me? You don't know me. Vincent looked toward the mountains, his jaw tight. Because 15 years ago, a kid died because I was a coward. I can't bring him back. But maybe I can keep his mother from losing anyone else. Cole stared at him. Does she know? Does Evelyn know you're here? Not yet. But she will. I owe her that much. He turned to go, then stopped. Cole, when they come, it's not going to be about making peace. They're coming for blood. That night, Cole told Evelyn and Ray everything. About Derek Morrison, about the fire, about the revenge he'd taken and the price it had brought down on everyone around him. Evelyn listened in silence, her face pale. I'm leaving, Cole said when he finished. Tonight, before they get here. I won't let you get hurt because of me. No, Evelyn. I said no. Her voice was iron. You run, they'll chase you. You run, and you'll spend the rest of your life running. I didn't pull you out of the snow just to watch you disappear into it again. They could kill you. They could try. She stood up, all 5 feet 2 inches of her, and looked him dead in the eye. I lost my son because he tried to help a stranger. I spent 15 years being angry at that stranger for leaving him to die. And now that stranger is here trying to make it right, and you want me to turn my back on you. She grabbed his hand. You are not running, Cole Matthews. You are standing. We all are. Together. Ray spoke up quietly. She's right. We face this together or we don't face it at all. You don't understand, Cole said desperately. These men are dangerous, violent, angry. Evelyn's smile was sad. So are you, Cole. So is Ray. So is Marcus. So is the man who killed him. We're all dangerous when we're hurting. The question is, do we keep hurting each other or do we find another way? There is no other way. Not with men like Derek Morrison. Then we make one, she squeezed his hand. We make one. The next morning, Evelyn did something that shocked the entire town. She called a meeting at St. Michael's Church, not a church service, a town meeting, and she invited everyone. The mayor, the sheriff, the doctors and teachers and shopkeepers, Claire Peterson and Jake Morrison and Frank Carver, and every person who'd whispered about her or defended her or just watched from the sidelines. When the church was full, Evelyn stood at the front. Cole and Ray stood behind her silent. Most of you know me, she began. Her voice was steady despite the trembling in her hands. I've lived in this town for 52 years. I've worshiped in this church. I've raised my son here. I've buried my husband here. This is my home. You are my people. She paused. 3 weeks ago, I found 2 men dying in the snow outside my fence. I brought them inside. I saved their lives, and in doing so, I brought danger to this town. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. There are men coming here, bad men, men who want to hurt Cole Matthews for something he did 5 years ago, something terrible, something I don't condone and can't excuse. She looked at Cole, but something I understand. Because 5 years ago, those men murdered his wife and his little boy. They burned them alive. The room went silent. Cole took revenge. He hurt the man who did it. He went to prison for it. And now that man's friends are coming to finish what they started. She turned back to the crowd. So I'm asking you as your neighbor, as Marcus Parker's mother, as someone who has lived and loved and lost in this town. I'm asking you to help me protect these men, because if we don't, we're telling the world that some lives don't matter, that some people don't deserve mercy. And I won't believe that about us. Mayor Donald Hatcher stood up. He was 58, balding with a politician's smile and a calculator for a heart. Mrs. Parker, with all due respect, you're asking us to risk our lives for criminals. I'm asking you to risk your comfort for human beings, Evelyn shot back. There's a difference. They brought this on themselves, did they? Her voice rose. Did Cole bring his wife and child's murder on himself? Did Ray bring PTSD on himself? Did Marcus bring a drunk driver on himself? She stepped forward. We all make choices, Donald. The question is, what choice will you make now? When it matters, Sheriff Brennan stood next. Even if we wanted to help, we can't fight off a biker gang. We don't have the resources. Then we get creative. Claire Peterson's voice rang out. She stood in the third pew, her gray hair pulled back, her spine straight. We've faced blizzards, droughts, and economic collapse. We've survived because we work together. This is no different. This is completely different, Jake Morrison said loudly. He was on his feet now, his face red. My mother died because of men like them. Why should I help them? Claire turned to her grandson, her eyes blazing. Your mother died because of a drunk driver, Jake. Not a biker. You've spent 12 years hating the wrong people. Don't spend the rest of your life being one of them. The room erupted, people shouting, arguing, fear and anger boiling over. And then Frank Carver stood up. The room quieted. Frank rarely spoke at town meetings, rarely spoke anywhere. I'm an alcoholic, he said clearly. I'm a veteran with PTSD. Most days I can barely get out of bed. I thought about killing myself at least once a week for the last 10 years. People shifted uncomfortably. Ray Donovan saved my life, not from the Taliban, from myself. He showed up at my trailer and he reminded me that I wasn't alone, that there were other people who understood, who'd been through the same hell and made it to the other side. His voice broke. If we turn our backs on him now, if we let these men come here and hurt him or Cole or Evelyn, then we're no better than the people who turned their backs on me, on all the broken people in this town who needed help and didn't get it. He sat down heavily. The silence that followed was thick with shame and recognition. Pastor Graham stood. I think he said quietly that we're being asked to choose who we want to be. The kind of town that protects only our own, or the kind that protects anyone who needs it, even when it's hard, even when it's scary. He looked around the room. I know what I choose. The question is, what do you choose? Slowly, one by one, people stood. Claire Peterson first, then Dr. Whitmore, then Tom Green from the hardware store, Mrs. Henderson, ancient and fierce. Others followed. Not everyone. But enough. That night, an emergency plan took shape. Sheriff Brennan, despite his reservations, coordinated with the county sheriff's office. They couldn't send a lot of manpower, but they'd have backup ready. Tom Green and the other men in town formed a watch rotation. They'd monitor the roads, keep eyes on the approaches to Evelyn's property. Dr. Whitmore stocked extra medical supplies, and Vincent Sullivan, the man who'd let Marcus Parker die 15 years ago, stood in Evelyn's kitchen and looked her in the eye. I can't bring your son back, he said. I can't undo what I did, but I can fight for you now if you'll let me. Evelyn studied him for a long moment. She saw the guilt carved into every line of his face, the weight he'd carried for 15 years. What's your real name, she asked. Not Reaper. Your real name? Vincent. Vincent Sullivan. Vincent. She said it like a prayer. My son died trying to save you. And you've been punishing yourself ever since. Haven't you? His eyes filled with tears. Every day. Then stop. Her voice was gentle but firm. Stop punishing yourself and start honoring him. Be the man he thought he was saving. Be the man worth dying for. Vincent broke. He fell to his knees and wept like a child. And Evelyn Parker, who had every right to hate him, put her hand on his head and forgave him. The days before the confrontation were strange. The town felt like it was holding its breath. People were kinder to each other, more patient, as if they all knew that something was coming and they wanted to make sure they said what needed to be said while there was still time. Cole and Ray spent those days preparing, reinforcing the windows of Evelyn's house, setting up defensive positions, but also quietly setting their affairs in order. Cole wrote a letter to his brother in California, a man he hadn't spoken to in 3 years. He told him he was sorry for shutting him out, that he loved him, that if anything happened, his brother should know that he'd found something worth fighting for at the end. Ray called his ex-wife. The conversation was short, painful, but necessary. He told her he was sorry for the man he'd been when he came home from the war, sorry for the anger and the drinking and the fear he'd brought into their home. She cried. So did he. I'm getting better, he told her. I found people who understand. I'm glad, she said softly. I never stopped caring, Ray. I just couldn't save you. I know. I had to save myself. Evelyn, for her part, wrote a letter to be opened in the event of her death. In it, she left her house to Cole and Ray with one condition: that they turn it into a place where broken people could find refuge, where bikers trying to leave the life could get a fresh start, where veterans could heal. She sealed the letter and gave it to Pastor Graham. I'm not planning on dying, she told him with a wry smile, but I've learned that God's plans and our plans don't always align. The night before Derek Morrison and the Iron Skulls were supposed to arrive, Evelyn cooked a feast. Pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, fresh bread, and apple pie. She invited everyone who'd stood up at the church meeting. Her small house was packed. People spilled out onto the porch and into the yard. Cole and Ray worked the grill outside, cooking burgers for the crowd. Children ran between the adults, laughing, unaware of the tension underneath. Claire Peterson brought her famous coleslaw. Frank Carver brought his guitar and played old country songs. Dr. Whitmore told medical school stories that had everyone in stitches. And Vincent Sullivan sat quietly in a corner, watching it all, something like wonder in his eyes. You okay? Ray asked, handing him a beer. Vincent shook his head. I don't deserve to be here. None of us do. That's the point. Ray sat down beside him. Evelyn doesn't give us what we deserve. She gives us what we need. There's a difference. I killed her son. No, you made a mistake that led to her son's death. There's a difference there, too. Ray took a drink. You can spend the rest of your life dying over it, or you can spend it making sure Marcus's death meant something. Your choice. Vincent looked at him. What would you do? I'd fight like hell tomorrow to make sure his mother sees another sunrise. Vincent nodded slowly. Yeah, me too. As the party wound down and people started to leave, Evelyn stood on her porch and looked out at the faces gathered in her yard. These people who days ago had been divided were now united, imperfectly, messily, but united nonetheless. Thank you, she said this simply. All of you, for being here, for choosing hope over fear. Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know that you made an old woman very proud tonight. Jake Morrison, who'd been silent all evening, stepped forward. Mrs. Parker, I'm sorry for the things I said, for the way I acted. My mom would be ashamed of me. Evelyn walked down the steps and took his hands. Your mother would be proud of the man you are becoming. It takes courage to admit you were wrong. More courage than being right in the first place. Jake's eyes were wet. I still don't know if I can forgive, but I want to try. That's all any of us can do. Try. That night, Cole, Ray, and Evelyn sat together in the quiet house. The dishes were done, the leftovers put away, the world outside, dark and cold. I never thought I'd have a family again, Cole said quietly. After Sarah and Danny died, I thought that was it for me. That I just exist until I didn't anymore. Me too, Ray admitted. I thought the war took everything worth having. Evelyn smiled. Family isn't about blood. It's about who you'd bleed for. And boys, I'd bleed for you. Tomorrow and every day after. Cole's voice was thick. We'd bleed for you too. I know. She stood up stiffly, her arthritis making her wince. Now let's get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. But none of them slept much. They lay in their beds, listening to the wind, thinking about the men coming with anger in their hearts and violence in their hands. And they thought about the choice they'd all made, to stand together, to believe that mercy was stronger than revenge, to bet their lives on the radical idea that people could change. In the dark hour before dawn, Ray got up and found Cole sitting on the porch, staring at the road. Can't sleep either, Ray asked. No. Cole's breath misted in the cold air. I keep thinking about Danny, about what I'd want someone to do if he'd survived and ended up like me. Lost and angry and destructive. What would you want? I'd want someone to save him, to see past the anger to the kid underneath, to give him a chance to be more than his worst moment. Cole's voice broke. That's what Evelyn did for us, isn't it? She gave us a chance to be more. Yeah, she did. They sat in silence, watching the stars fade as the sky turned gray. Whatever happens today, Cole said, I want you to know you're my brother. Not by blood, but by choice, and that matters more. Ray clasped his shoulder. Brothers. The sun rose slowly, painting the snow-covered fields in shades of gold and orange. Somewhere in the distance, engines rumbled. The sound grew louder, closer, inevitable. The iron skulls were coming, and Willow Creek was ready to meet them. They came with the sunrise. 27 motorcycles, their engines a rolling thunder that shook windows and sent birds scattering from the trees. They moved in formation down Route 89, leather and chrome, and barely contained rage. At their head rode Derek Morrison, his face a map of old violence and new determination. He'd spent 5 years in physical therapy learning to walk again after what Cole Matthews had done to him. 5 years of pain so intense he'd screamed himself unconscious. 5 years planning this moment. The iron skulls pulled up to the edge of town and stopped. A wall of bikes and men blocking the road. Waiting. In Evelyn's house, the radio crackled. Tom Green's voice came through tense. They're here, end of Main Street. They're not moving yet. Just sitting there, Sheriff Brennan's voice followed. County backup is 15 minutes out. I'm asking everyone to stay calm. Do not engage. I repeat, do not engage. But Evelyn was already putting on her coat. What are you doing? Cole demanded. I'm going to talk to them. Absolutely not. She turned to him, her eyes fierce despite her age. Cole Matthews, I did not raise one son and find 2 more just to watch them kill each other in my front yard. I'm going out there. You can come with me or stay here, but you will not stop me. Ray grabbed his jacket. Then we go together. Vincent Sullivan appeared in the doorway, 10 Hells Angels bikers behind him. We're ready. Evelyn looked at them, all these rough men who'd lived hard lives and made harder choices. No weapons, no one draws first. We talk before we fight. Understood? Vincent nodded slowly. Understood. They walked out into the cold morning, a strange procession. An old woman in a wool coat. 2 men who'd nearly died in her yard. A man carrying 15 years of guilt. And 10 bikers who'd come to protect them all. The town watched from windows and porches. Claire Peterson stood on her front steps, Jake beside her. Dr. Whitmore was in his car, medical kit ready. Pastor Graham stood at the church doors, his lips moving in silent prayer. When they reached Main Street, the 2 groups faced each other. Hells Angels and Iron Skulls. Old rivals, old grudges, old wounds that had never healed. Derek Morrison climbed off his bike. He was 40 years old but moved like an old man, his left leg dragging slightly, his back stiff. The damage Cole had done was visible in every step. Cole Matthews, he called out. Been looking for you. Cole stepped forward. I'm here. Good. Derek's smile was cold. Saves me the trouble of dragging you out. Evelyn moved between them. That's close enough, Mr. Morrison. Derek's eyes flicked to her, dismissive at first, then sharpening. Who the hell are you? I'm Evelyn Parker. This is my town, and you're not welcome here. I don't give a damn about your town, lady. I'm here for him. He pointed at Cole. He put me in the hospital for 6 months, destroyed my back, my leg, my life, and now I'm here to return the favor. I know what Cole did to you, Evelyn said calmly. I also know what you did to his wife and son. I know you burned them alive. The street went silent. Even Derek's men shifted uncomfortably. They had nothing to do with our business, Cole said, his voice shaking with controlled rage. Sarah was a school teacher. Danny was 5 years old. You murdered them to get to me. That's the life, Derek shot back. You knew the rules when you testified against us. You knew there'd be consequences. Consequences. Evelyn's voice cut like a knife. You call murdering a woman and a child consequences. You call burning people alive business. Derek's jaw tightened. Stay out of this, old woman. I can't do that. Because you're not the only one here with old wounds, Mr. Morrison. She stepped closer, fearless, despite the danger radiating from this man. Do you know who Jake Morrison is? Derek's eyes narrowed. Should I? He's your nephew, your brother's son. Derek's face went pale. He looked past Evelyn to where Jake stood on Claire's porch, and something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, confusion, fear. What the hell are you talking about? Claire Peterson walked forward, her steps slow but steady. She stopped beside Evelyn, and when she spoke, her voice carried across the silent street. 12 years ago, my daughter Rachel was driving home from work. She was 24 years old, a nurse. She'd just gotten engaged. She had her whole life ahead of her. Claire's voice didn't waver. A biker ran a red light and hit her car head-on. She died instantly. The biker fled the scene. We never knew who it was. Never got justice. Never got closure. She looked at Derek. That biker was you, wasn't it, Derek? The color drained from Derek's face. Behind him, his men muttered, shifted, their loyalty suddenly uncertain. I don't know what your July 14th, 2011, corner of 5th and Oak in Billings. You were running drugs for the Iron Skulls. You were high, you ran the light, and you killed my daughter, and you ran like a coward. Claire's voice finally broke. And then you spent the next 12 years building a reputation as a hard man, while my grandson grew up without a mother. Jake stepped forward, his face contorted with years of buried pain. That's my mom you killed. My mom. Derek staggered back as if he'd been shot. I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know who she was. Would it have mattered? Evelyn asked softly. If you'd known she was a mother, a daughter, someone's whole world, would it have mattered? Derek's mouth opened and closed. No words came out. Vincent Sullivan spoke up, his voice heavy with old shame. 15 years ago, I was riding through here in a storm. Crashed my bike. A kid stopped to help me. I was high, scared, stupid. When I heard sirens, I ran. The kid died trying to save me. His name was Marcus Parker. He looked at Evelyn. This woman's son. I killed her son as surely as Derek killed that nurse. And I've lived with it every day since. The silence was absolute. So here's what I know, Vincent continued. We're all murderers. Me, Derek, probably half the men standing here. We've all done things we can't take back. We've all left bodies in our wake. His voice strengthened. But some of us choose to live with it by making more bodies. And some of us choose to live with it by making sure no one else has to feel what we made others feel. That's the only difference between me and you, Derek. I'm trying to be better than my worst moment. What are you trying to be? Derek's hands were shaking. He looked at Jake, at Claire, at the town full of people watching him. I can't take it back. I can't bring your daughter back. I can't change what I did to Cole's family. No, Evelyn agreed. You can't, but you can choose what happens next. You can add more bodies to your count, more grief to the world. Or you can stop, right here, right now, and then when I go to prison, I lose everything. You've already lost everything, Cole said quietly. The question is whether you take the rest of us down with you. Derek looked at his men, at the guns they carried, at the violence they'd come here to commit. Then he looked at Jake, this young man who shared his blood and his tragedy. I killed your mother, Derek said to Jake. His voice was hollow. I didn't know it was her, but that doesn't matter. I killed her and I ran. And I'm sorry. I know sorry doesn't mean shit, but it's all I have. Jake's face was wet with tears. Why? Why did you run? Because I was scared. Because I was high. Because I was a coward. Derek's own tears came now, years of held back grief and guilt and rage pouring out. Because I've been a coward my whole life. Hiding behind the club, behind the violence, behind the idea that being hard means being strong. Claire stepped forward. The movement was so unexpected that several iron skulls reached for their weapons. But she just walked up to Derek Morrison, this man who had killed her daughter, and looked him in the eye. I forgive you. The words hung in the frozen air like a miracle. What Derek's voice was barely a whisper. I forgive you. Claire's voice was stronger now. Not because you deserve it, not because it makes what you did okay, but because I'm tired of hate. I'm tired of anger. I'm tired of waking up every day wanting someone to suffer the way I've suffered. She reached out and took his scarred, tattooed hands in her small, weathered ones. I forgive you because that's the only way any of us gets free. Derek collapsed, not physically, but something inside him broke wide open. He fell to his knees in the middle of Main Street, this hard man who'd built his life on violence and rage, and he wept like a child. Jake stood frozen, watching the man who'd killed his mother break apart. Evelyn walked over to him. What he did to your mother is unforgivable. But forgiveness isn't for him. It's for you. It's for your grandmother. It's so the hate doesn't eat you alive the way it's eaten him. I don't know if I can, Jake said. Then don't. Not today. Maybe not ever. But don't let it turn you into him. Jake looked at his uncle, at this broken man sobbing in the street, and something in his face changed. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But maybe the beginning of something that could become forgiveness someday. Sheriff Brennan's voice cut through the moment. Derek Morrison, you're under arrest for vehicular manslaughter and hit and run resulting in death. Derek didn't resist. He just held out his hands for the cuffs. But before Brennan could move, Cole stepped forward. I'm turning myself in too. Cole, no, Ray started. I'm guilty, Ray. I nearly killed a man. Doesn't matter that he deserved it. Doesn't matter why I did it, and I have to answer for it. He looked at Evelyn. You taught me that mercy doesn't come with conditions. Well, justice doesn't either. Brennan looked between them. Cole Matthews, you're under arrest for assault with intent to commit murder. As the sheriff cuffed them both, something extraordinary happened. The iron skulls who'd come here for revenge started to peel away. One by one, they mounted their bikes and rode off, not in formation, not as a unit, but as individual men making individual choices to walk away from the violence they'd come to commit. Within minutes, only 3 iron skulls remained, and they weren't there to fight. They were there to witness. Vincent Sullivan watched it all with something like awe. I've never seen anything like this. That's because you've never seen mercy before, Evelyn said softly. Not real mercy, the kind that costs everything and gives everything. Over the next weeks, Willow Creek became something different. Not perfect, not healed, but changed. Derek Morrison pleaded guilty to vehicular manslaughter. The judge, moved by Claire Peterson's testimony about forgiveness and Derek's genuine remorse, sentenced him to 2 years in prison with possibility of parole after 1. It wasn't enough for some people. It was too much for others. But it was what the law allowed, and it was what Claire asked for. Cole Matthews faced trial for assault. The jury, hearing about his wife and son's murder, about the years of grief and rage that led to his actions, convicted him of aggravated assault instead of attempted murder. He received a 3-year suspended sentence and 500 hours of community service. Ray Donovan stayed in Willow Creek. He got a job at the hardware store, started seeing a therapist in Billings twice a week, and moved into a small apartment above the diner. Frank Carver became his roommate. They helped each other through the bad days, of which there were many, and celebrated the good ones, of which there were slowly more. Vincent Sullivan did something no one expected. He went to the police and confessed to his role in Marcus Parker's death. He was charged with leaving the scene of an accident resulting in death. He served 6 months in county jail, and when he got out, he came back to Willow Creek. Evelyn was waiting for him. "What are you doing here?" Vincent asked. "Offering you a job," she smiled. "I'm turning this place into something bigger, a refuge for men trying to leave the life, men who want a second chance. I need someone who knows what they're going through, someone who's been where they are." "That's you, Vincent." He stared at her. "After what I did to your son, you want me to help run his memorial. I want you to give his death meaning. That's all I've ever wanted." Vincent Sullivan, who'd been running from Marcus Parker's ghost for 15 years, finally stopped running. The Marcus Parker Recovery Ranch opened 18 months after that day on Main Street. It sat on Evelyn's property, expanded with donations from all over Montana and beyond. The story had gone national, the widow who forgave her son's killer, the biker gang war that ended in mercy, the small town that chose compassion over fear. The ranch had capacity for 20 men. Ex-bikers, veterans, anyone trying to rebuild their lives after violence and trauma. They worked the land, went to therapy, learned trades, and slowly, painfully became people they could live with. Cole Matthews ran the place. His community service had turned into a calling. He was good at it, this work of helping broken men see they didn't have to stay broken. Ray Donovan taught a weekly class in coping with PTSD. Frank Carver played guitar at the Sunday gatherings. Vincent Sullivan, who everyone now called Vincent instead of Reaper, managed the day-to-day operations. And Evelyn Parker, 78 years old and slowed by arthritis but not by spirit, lived in the old farmhouse and kept the door open for anyone who needed it. 2 years to the day after Derek Morrison and the Iron Skulls came to Willow Creek, the town held its first annual redemption rally. Not a biker rally in the traditional sense. A gathering of people who'd found their way back from the edge. Over 300 people came. Ex-gang members, former addicts, veterans, people who'd been in prison, people who'd lost loved ones to violence and chosen forgiveness instead of revenge. They came from across the country to this small Montana town because they had heard the story, because they needed to believe that change was possible. Derek Morrison was there, released early for good behavior. He'd spent his time in prison getting his GED and training as a substance abuse counselor. When he walked up to Claire Peterson, she hugged him. Jake stood beside her. He didn't hug Derek, but he shook his hand. "I'm not there yet," Jake said, "but I'm working on it. That's all I can ask for," Derek replied. The gathering ended with a ceremony at sunset. Everyone gathered at the memorial that had been erected on the exact spot where Evelyn had found Cole and Ray in the snow. It was a simple stone monument with a bronze plaque. The inscription read, "Where mercy meets the least of us, heaven touches earth." In memory of Marcus Parker, whose life and death taught us that no one is beyond saving. Evelyn stood in front of it, her hand on the cool bronze, and thought about her son, about the dreams he'd had, the man he'd been becoming, the life he never got to live. But she also thought about the lives that had been saved because of his death, about Cole and Ray, about Vincent finding redemption, about Derek facing his crimes, about Frank and Ray helping each other heal, about the dozens of men who'd passed through the ranch and found something they'd lost hope. "Did I do right, Marcus?" she whispered to the stone. "Is this what you would have wanted?" In her heart, she heard the answer. Not in words, but in the feeling of peace that settled over her, warm despite the cold. In the knowledge that love multiplies, that mercy spreads, that one act of kindness can ripple out farther than anyone can imagine. Cole appeared beside her. "You okay?" "I am." She smiled up at him. "I really am." Ray joined them on her other side. The three of them stood together, watching the sun set over the mountains, painting the world in shades of gold and orange and pink. "Thank you," Cole said quietly, "for saving us." "You saved yourselves," Evelyn replied. "I just gave you a place to do it." "No," Ray's voice was firm. "You gave us more than that. You gave us a reason. You showed us that we were worth saving. That's everything. As darkness fell and the stars began to appear, the crowd lit candles. Hundreds of small lights flickering in the Montana night, each one representing a life touched, a soul healed, a person choosing to be better than their worst moment. Evelyn Parker stood in the middle of all those lights, this tiny woman who'd simply chosen mercy when the world expected vengeance, and she felt her husband's presence. Marcus's too, not as ghosts but as blessings, as proof that love doesn't end with death. It just changes form. She was 80 years old when she died 3 years after the first redemption rally. She went peacefully in her sleep in the house where she'd lived for more than half a century, with Cole and Ray sitting vigil by her bed. Her last words were, "Tell them I'll see them soon. Tell them I'm proud." They buried her next to Henry in the cemetery on the hill. The funeral was standing room only. Bikers came from across the country, leather and tattoos mixed with suits and ties. Veterans, former inmates, people whose lives she'd touched in ways large and small. Pastor Graham, 90 years old and still preaching, gave the eulogy. Evelyn Parker was not a perfect woman, he said. She was stubborn, she was bossy. She sometimes thought she knew better than God himself how things should be handled. The crowd laughed through their tears. But she had one quality that covered all her flaws. She loved fiercely, completely, without condition. She looked at the worst of us and saw the best we could become. She took our excuses and handed us back possibilities. She took our shame and transformed it into purpose. He paused, looking out at the sea of faces. The world will tell you that some people can't change, that some sins can't be forgiven, that some wounds can't heal. Evelyn Parker didn't believe that, and because she didn't believe it, hundreds of us are standing here today as proof that she was right. After the burial, as people slowly left, Cole and Ray stayed behind. They stood by her grave in silence for a long time. She would have hated all this fuss, Ray finally said. Yeah, Cole smiled. She would have told us to stop crying and get back to work. So that's what we do. That's what we do. They walked back down the hill together. Brothers in everything but blood, carrying Evelyn's legacy forward with every step. The Marcus Parker Recovery Ranch still operates today. It's expanded twice now, serving 50 men at a time. Cole Matthews runs it with a firm hand and an open heart. Ray Donovan is the lead trauma counselor, his own scars making him uniquely qualified to help others heal theirs. Vincent Sullivan is the director of operations, and Derek Morrison, after years of training, became the substance abuse counselor. Every year on the anniversary of the day Evelyn found Cole and Ray in the snow, they hold the Redemption Rally. It's grown into one of the largest recovery gatherings in the Northwest. Thousands come not to celebrate their past lives, but to honor the second chances they've been given. And in the center of the ranch property where Evelyn's house once stood, there's a shelter that never closes. It's called simply Evelyn's Place. The sign outside reads, "Where Lost Angels Find Home." Inside, there's a picture of Evelyn Parker on the wall. She's standing between Cole and Ray, all three of them smiling, snow falling around them, the farmhouse in the background. She looks tiny between them, fragile even, but her eyes are bright with wow and fierce with love. Underneath the picture, a quote from her final interview with a journalist who'd asked her why she did it, why she'd risked everything for two strangers. Her answer was simple: because Marcus taught me that the most dangerous thing in the world isn't bad people. It's good people who do nothing. He didn't do nothing, and neither would I. That night, long after everyone had gone home, Cole sat on the porch of the main house looking out at the lights of the ranch. Men in recovery finding their way back to themselves. Men who'd been written off, given up on, declared hopeless. Men who were proving every single day that Evelyn had been right. Ray joined him, 2 mugs of coffee in hand. They sat in comfortable silence watching the stars. "You think she knows?" Ray asked. "Wherever she is, you think she knows what this place has become?" Cole smiled. "Yeah, I think she knows, and I think she's up there bossing God around, telling him he's doing it wrong." They laughed, that particular laugh that comes when grief and mourn and gratitude all tangle together. Somewhere in the distance, an engine roared to life. Not in anger, not in violence. Just a man leaving the ranch heading back to his life, carrying with him the hope that Evelyn Parker had given him. The same hope she'd given to hundreds. The same hope that would echo through generations. That some people can change. That mercy is stronger than judgment. That love, real love, doesn't count the cost, it just saves.